With Sony and Nintendo hiking up prices, $80 games becoming the norm, and PlayStation Plus and Xbox Game Pass locking us into ecosystems we did not ask for, it's starting to feel like gaming is less about fun and more about survival. And let's be real, we watched way too many games die on day one. X Defiant, gone before it even launched. Concord, already forgotten. Studios are chasing trends, monetization, and it's creeping in from every angle. And players are left wondering, is this really where gaming was supposed to go? So today I'm diving into a question a lot of people are too scared to answer out loud. Is gaming actually dying? Let's talk about it. But before we dive in, if you care about gaming the way I do, hit that subscribe button. I cover everything the industry doesn't want you to think about, and trust me, it gets deeper from here. Recently, the announcement of the Switch 2 came out, and it was revealed that the console was retail around $450 in the US and around the world somewhere around the $500 range. And look, while that price is definitely a bit of a shocker, it honestly didn't come as much as a surprise. Gaming consoles have been getting more and more expensive over the years, thanks to the advanced hardware and the rising cost of materials around the world. We're talking about chips, more storage, improved screens, all that adds up. So yeah, $450 does hurt, but people kind of expected it. But where everyone, and I mean everyone, started losing their minds wasn't the hardware, it was the price of games. Because Nintendo also revealed that some new titles like Mario Kart World would retail for $80. Yes, $80. Now think about that for a second. $80 used to be reserved for deluxe editions, collector's packs or bundles that came with extra skins or bonus missions or I don't know, a gold plated coin. But now it's just the base game. And this isn't just a Nintendo thing, this is a precedent. Once one major company makes a move like this, it gets away with it. Others will follow this trend. The $80 price point sets a tone that's way more disruptive than people realize. It tells the rest of the industry, hey, if Nintendo can do it, maybe we can try it too. And that's when things start getting really slippery. Now, here's the wild part. The new Switch isn't some underpowered gimmick console like its predecessors. This thing is legit. It's the most powerful Nintendo system that they've ever made. Early reports say it'll run games like Elden Ring, Cyberpunk 2077, and a bunch of other heavy games without breaking a sweat. So, on the surface, this looks and feels like a win for the gaming industry. We've been begging for Nintendo to catch up to modern performance, and now they're finally doing it. So, the idea of having this hybrid console that can run modern AAA titles on the go, that's awesome, and that is a major W. Sure, the gaming prices are questionable, but at least the hardware feels like it's worth something, right? I mean, well, just when you think the dust is starting to settle, here comes Sony. Sony took one look at the current price landscape and said, cool story. Now let's make everything more expensive. And that's actually what they did over the past couple of days. Across the world, pretty much in every single country except for the US, Sony has increased prices on just about everything, from hardware, accessories, and even the PlayStation Plus subscription got a massive price hike. And these aren't just small jumps either. In some regions, PS Plus pricing went up by as much as 30 to 35%. So now it's not just more expensive to buy into PlayStation ecosystem, it's more expensive just to exist inside of it. You're paying more to enter, and now you're paying more to stay. And what are you getting back in return? Games that are still being drip fed content, season passes stacked on top of the battle passes, live service experiments that flame out in 6 months, and that brings us to Xbox, the one platform that for now hasn't gone all in on ridiculous pricing, but even that's starting to look a little shaky. While Xbox hasn't raised their prices in the same way Sony or Nintendo has, they're busy with other things, namely trying to strip away actual game ownership. More and more, the Xbox strategy seems to be just subscribe to Game Pass and don't worry about owning anything. But what happens when Game Pass loses licenses? What happens when they rotate out of your favorite game mid playthrough? What happens when their console sales hit a record low and they start consolidating even more? We're looking at a scenario where all three players, Sony, Nintendo, and Xbox, are pushing gaming further into this locked down, subscription heavy, overpriced future. A future where you're either paying more upfront or you're paying more slowly over time. And either way, you're getting less control than ever before. And meanwhile, the games themselves, we're now living in a time where free to play games aren't even free anymore. They launch in early access, but you have to pay to get in. You're not paying for a finished product, you're paying to test it, while the devs figure out what the game even is. And if you're not buying that battle pass, you're behind. You're missing content, falling behind the progression, or just straight up locked out of the rewards that make the grind feel worth it. It's not just one or two games either. Every single online game now has a battle pass. Some kind of cosmetic shop, bundles, seasonal currencies. It's like they're all using the exact same formula and hoping we don't notice. And let's be honest, we do notice. We're paying more for the games, we're paying more for the to stay in the ecosystem, we're buying more passes, bundles, and skins than ever before. And yet, it feels like we're getting less. Less innovation, less content, less ownership, and less respect for the time and the money that we put into this hobby. Gaming used to be the space where $60 got you the whole game. No strings, no battle passes, no pay to skip XP boosts. Now it feels like every inch of the experience is being monetized. So when people ask, is gaming dying? It's not an overreaction. It's not doomer talk. It's not nostalgia clouding judgment. It's a reflection of what the industry looks like right now. And it's a fair question. Because when you zoom out and look at what gaming has become, it's hard not to notice the shift. We're not just talking about monetization anymore. We're talking about a fundamental change in how games are made, marketed, and delivered. Games today don't launch as games, they launch as platforms. They're not focused on being complete at release. They focus on hooking you just for long enough that you justify spending money later. Season 1 roadmaps, content plan for quarter 3, live service evolution. These are all the terms we hear before we even know if the game is any good. And half the time, the game isn't even finished. It's just a foundation, a placeholder for what the real game might become eventually, if it survives long enough to get there. And that's the part that gets me. How many games are launching unfinished, relying on the community to carry them across the finish line? And if they flop, it's honestly like they never existed. Think about how many games in the last few years had massive hype, dropped with a "we're listening" promise, and then disappeared faster than you could finish the battle pass. Battlefield 2042, Hyenas, Saints Row, Crossfire, Knockout City, Xdefiant, Concord, and there's so many more on this list. Every one of these games launched with some variation of the same pitch. We're building a live service experience, the roadmap is coming, and then it didn't come. Or if it did, it came a little too late. Players moved on, support got pulled, now it's gone. And you know who gets hit hardest when that happens? The players, the ones who believed in that vision, who paid up front, who bought the Founders Pack or the Early Access Bundle or the Day One cosmetics, who showed up before the game proved itself and got absolutely nothing for it. And that's what we're living through right now. An industry where the player loyalty tax is real and gets more expensive every single year. And while all that's happening, the soul of gaming is being pushed further into the margins. Original ideas are getting passed over for safe bets. Studios are laying off developers while spending record amounts on marketing. Executives are making decisions based on quarterly earnings instead of a player feedback, and it honestly shows. We're getting fewer risks, fewer surprises, fewer moments that remind you of why you fell in love with games in the first place. I think that the creativity, the risk taking, the player first mindset, all of that is being buried under the weight of monetization and safe design. And if we want to see things turn around, we have to start calling it out. We have to start supporting the games and developers who get it and stop throwing money at systems that are designed to drain us dry. Because at the end of the day, gaming is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be a break, an escape, a passion. Not a second job, not a gamble, and definitely not something that leaves you wondering why you ever paid to play in the first place. And here's what's wild. We all know this. We all understand this. Every gamer feels this. Even if they can't quite put it into words, you feel it when you log into a game that you used to love and suddenly you don't recognize it anymore. You feel it when you look at your favorite franchise and realize it's chasing trends instead of trying to push the genre forward. But here's what I've also realized. Gaming isn't dying, it's splitting. We're watching the industry separate into two different realities. On one side, you have the AAA ecosystem, the big budgets, the safe ideas, monetization layered on top of monetization, executive decisions driving creative ones. These are the games with the $1 million trailers, the early access bundles, and season passes before the games even launch. And on the other side, you have the indie scene, the passion projects, the smaller studios, or even single developers. In this side of gaming, it still feels alive. It still feels risky. It still feels like something worth rooting for. And it's strange because even though these indie games don't have the flashy graphics or the blockbuster hype, they're doing something the AAA side can't even seem to remember how to do. And that's simply respect the player. When you play something like Hades, Stardew Valley, or Celeste, you can feel that the people behind these games made them because they love games. And ironically, those are the ones that end up having the most heart, the strongest communities, and the longest staying power. And I'm not saying AAA can't still produce magic. We've got Elden Ring that absolutely proved that. God of Ragnarok did it as well. Baldur's Gate 3 might go down as one of the most player respecting games of all time. But here's the thing. When those games dropped, they didn't ask you to buy anything else to enjoy them. They didn't come with a roadmap. They were the full experience right out of the gate. So yeah, the future of gaming might feel uncertain right now, and I get why people are saying gaming is dying, but I don't think it's dying. I think we're just waking up to the fact that the version of gaming that we grew up loving is being replaced with something we never really asked for. And now we have to decide what to do about that, because this moment we're in right now, it kind of feels like a turning point. Players are more informed than ever. People are calling out studios for cash grabby behavior faster than they used to. Games that launch unfinished are getting roasted immediately on social media. In games that treat players with respect, they're being rewarded in a way that actually matters, not just with praise, but with real sustained success. And that's why I'm hopeful, not because the industry is perfect, it's far from it, but because players are starting to see through the nonsense. Players aren't just buying a game anymore because the trailer looked cool or because it's from a big studio. We're digging deeper, waiting, watching. And that pressure, that's what's going to force change. Because at some point, even the biggest publishers have to respond to player behavior. If we stop showing up for rushed live service filler and start showing up for games that respect our time and money, then eventually the market will follow that trend. It has to. And I know that sounds idealistic, but we've already seen it happen. Helldivers 2 exploded because it dropped as a complete game, was fun as hell to play, and had a dev team that communicated with players. And it didn't try to nickel and dime every interaction. No battle pass, no overpriced bundles, no shady monetization on day one. And guess what? It became one of the most played games of that year. So there's your proof. We're not asking for too much. We're not being entitled. We're asking for games to be what they used to be. Something worth the hype, something worth sticking with, something you'll tell your friends about because it's just genuinely fun to play. Because at the core of this whole conversation, buried underneath the $80 price tags, the subscription wars, the endless cosmetic bundles, is a simple truth. Gamers just want good games. Not good monetization strategies, not good marketing cycles, not good player retention tactics, just good games. And that's it. And the moment we start collectively demanding that again, loudly, consistently, unapologetically, that's the moment gaming stops feeling like it's dying and starts to feel like it's being reborn. And if you feel like gaming has so much more room to grow, I know that you'll love this video I recently made about Marathon.